Hello, Gotham friends and family. Welcome to another episode. Now, you might notice or you might have realized that we are doing a redo of our color episode. On the last Live with Gotham Quilts, we had some sound issues, and it was such an important topic that I wanted to redo it. So I'm glad to have another bite at this apple to be able to bring you some tips and tricks on colors. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The reason I'm bringing this to you is to promote and advertise our Color for Quilters class. Now, our next semester of Color for Quilters is starting in July, and we cannot wait to have another session. Color for Quilters is a year-long exploration of color, and it is specifically designed for quilters. You see what we did there with the name? Yeah, pretty creative, huh? In any event, we meet once a month. It's all virtual. We have a textbook that guides us through, but you are also led by a world-class instructor, Colleen. She is amazing at teaching and was really very passionate about all things color. So really, we hope that you will consider signing up for our Color for Quilters class. It's a great way to build your confidence around quilting, specifically as it relates to colors and picking out fabrics. It goes beyond just the normal color wheel that you would see in any kind of color theory class, although that is a part of it too. But it is specifically designed for the challenges that quilters face, and that is, what do you do when there's a pattern? What do you do when there's multiple colors in a fabric? And all of those things are going to be addressed in the Color for Quilters class. But I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. I'm going to go through some of my favorite tips for picking out quilts for fabric, or picking out fabrics for quilts rather, to make sure that all of the colors play nice together. And the first thing that we're going to start with, actually, funny story, is not about color at all. If we are looking at what I've got here, I've got 4 fabrics picked out, and you can see which one was kind of my feature fabric. This is the one I started with, and then I picked out some colors, some fabrics that went along with this. But when you're looking at this, the palette looks a little muddy, a little uninspired, and this brings me to the first tip, and that is, it's not about the color, it's about the value. When something feels just a little bit off, try changing your value first. And you might ask, well, how do I know if it's a value issue or not? And the answer is super simple. There is one thing that all of us have. We are either holding it in our hands or it is in our pocket right now, and that is a smartphone. Now, your smartphone does tons of things really amazing. It is really the quilter's best friend. But what it does super well and super easily is it will give you it'll strip out all the color. So what happens with color is our eyes love color. We get kind of distracted rather by the color of some fabric. Um, but our brain doesn't care about color at all. What our brain needs is contrast in the value. And the value is when you're looking at something like a fabric, it's how light or dark the fabric is. And sometimes our eyes get distracted by the color, so we use our smartphones to help us out. In this next image here, you can see I took a picture of the fabric. It's in a slightly different order, but it's the same fabric here. And then I turned that photo into black and white. You can also just use a black and white filters if you don't want to have a whole bunch of pictures in your photos here. But I turned that photo to black and white, and you can see that they are all kind of the same shade of gray. Sure, the red one is a little bit darker, but they're all really very similar. There's not enough contrast in between these fabrics. So that's what I'm talking about when it's value. Now, color gets all of the glory. Color gets all of the attention, but really what's doing the heavy lifting in anything, whether it's quilting or painting or photographs, value is what is doing the heavy lifting. So I just took a let's see here. I took a lesson from that. And actually, let me go to the overhead so I can show you. I took a lesson from that, and I really liked this red with it, but I swapped out these two colors with some other fabrics that would hopefully give me a little bit more of that contrast. And so I swapped out the blue with a darker blue, and I swapped out the brown with kind of a medium to darker brown. And that is so I could get the same feel as I had before with those colors that I chose, but I just needed different values. So now let me show you what happened. With those new fabrics, you can see the blue, the brown, and the red. Again, slightly different order, but the same fabrics here. And of course, I kept my feature fabric. You can see now that when I turn that into black and white, I have a lot more value difference. I have that blue, which ended up being the darkest of all the fabrics that I chose. The brown is somewhere in the middle. And now that red that used to be the darkest is actually the lightest. So that is tip number 1 is when something just doesn't feel right or it seems kind of muddy or the fabrics are kind of blending into each other too much, it's not your color that's the problem, it's the value. Now, the second trick that I wanted to bring to you is you don't necessarily have to have a smartphone. If you don't have a smartphone or you're shopping for fabric and your camera dies or your phone dies, you still have a way to do that same trick. Now, what you would want to do is take a little bit of a distance from your fabric. So put it in your shopping cart if you are at a store, for example. Get a little bit of distance and just squint at your fabric. Give it the mean, dirty dog eye. And you want to just close your eyelids just enough so that you're limiting the light that comes into your eyes. And what that's going to do is your eyes need light in order to see color. So what that's going to do is it's going to strip out some of the color and you're going to be left with just the value. Now, when you're squinting at your fabric and you're looking at it and you can distinctly see the different fabrics that you have, you're good. That means you have enough value difference. You have enough contrast there. If you're taking a step back and you're squinting at your fabrics and they're kind of running into each other, that's a sign that you might need to get some more contrast, some more value differences. So don't be afraid, just like I did, don't be afraid to stay in the same color family if you like that feel. Just pick something a little darker, a little lighter, so that you can make your brain happy and your eyes as well. So the third trick that I'm going to show you is kind of a fun one. It's one of my favorites. It is sometimes a well-kept secret, but it has to do with your selvage on your fabric. And so let's see here. I'm going to cue this up here. I'll flip it around so that we can, whoops, so that we can see it. And what you want to do is when you are shopping for fabric, all screen printed fabric is going to actually, all fabric is going to have a selvage. All screen printed fabric is going to have these little registration dots there. And so what that is doing is it is showing you what colors of ink went into making this fabric. And so you can see on this particular fabric, when I'm looking just at it without that, it's looks a little muddy, especially if I get a little distance. There's a lot going on. The colors kind of blend. It's on this dark background. I like this fabric. I want to use it, but I'm having a hard time picking out what colors go with it. The dark next to some of the green, and there's just the tiniest bit of tan in there. It all blends together and it makes it really muddy. So what I can do is go back to my selvage here and use this to help me color match some fabrics. And some of them get really super cute with different designs. This one actually, it's upside down, so I'll flip it around so you can see it really quickly. But they have cute little sayings or like little quotations in there. They're a lot of fun and they're getting to be a lot of fun. But what I'm going to do today is The most beautiful thing you can wear is confidence. I love that. The thing I'm gonna do today is use these little registration dots to help me find some coordinating fabric. It's a lot easier to match a truer color down here where I've got the color just by itself than trying to match it to a piece that's, there's a lot going on, for example. So you pick out a couple of colors and you line it up and you match it up. And you can see here, I was able to pick a purple. And here I was able to use that selvage to pick a green. And that is really very close up. But what you're seeing is depending on which color you pick, it's going to make different parts of this fabric just pop. Where you might not have seen or might not have brought that green to the forefront before, matching the green from the selvage and then putting that next to the fabric really does brighten up that green. It gives me a little bit more definition around those swirly bops, what am I thinking of? The paisley design here, and it just brightens it up a little bit. Now, the other thing I'll point out is to pay attention to the number of selvage dots here of registration marks. Now, you can see in this particular fabric, there are 5 registration dots. Now, you are going to see, I would say, roughly one of these for every major color that is part of the printing process. Sometimes you'll find some colors in your fabric that you're not finding a selvage dot for, and all that means is that the printer, the manufacturer, used 2 of these colors in conjunction. I'm sorry, overlaid the colors. So you could have a purple underneath a pink. Those are printed in the exact same spot, but that overlay of that fabric makes a new third color. Just like kind of when you learned in school, yellow and green make blue. Um, those colors together would do the same thing with ink on screen printing. It doesn't happen a ton, but you might see that where you've got a really complex fabric that has way more fabrics or way more colors rather than you have in selvage dots. That just explains the reason why. But you know that these selvage dots, at a minimum, are the colors or the underlying colors in all of your fabric. So the more selvage dots you have, the more colors in there. That also means the more colors you have to pull from, so a lot more variety. But it might be analysis paralysis a little bit in that you have too many to choose from. A nice simple fabric like this will give you just a handful of colors to choose from. That means fewer choices. It means fewer accents that I could do. Now, I could also do like a light purple of this or a dark purple, same thing with the green. So you could bring in lights and darks of that, but fewer places to start with. If I hate purple, pink, and green, this might not be the fabric or the fabric line for me. Now, the next trick that I'm going to tell you about is one of my favorites. And this has to do with applies a lot to basic colors. So if you're thinking of like a gray, sometimes even black, creams, or maybe even some white or white adjacent colors. And that is to look for the color behind the color. And what I mean by that is let's take a look at these 2 gray fabrics. Now you can tell that they are very clearly different, but they're both gray, right? And so when you are shopping for your quilt, when you're picking out your fabrics, you want to look at the color behind the color. So what I mean by that is when I'm looking at this fabric right here, you can see that it's got kind of a blue tint to it. It's still gray, but it's got a blue undertone. Versus the gray right next to it, this has a pinky purple undertone to it. And so I can use those undertones to help me pick some fabrics. And I'll show you a good way to get behind that. A really fun, easy, simple way. to get behind the color behind your color is to put it next to a piece of paper that is white. You don't want anything printed on that. You don't want to distract from anything. But when you put a stark white piece of paper or cardstock or even fabric right next to it, it makes it a little bit easier to see the color behind the color, that undertone there. So you can see when I put this white, I'll move this one out of the way here. But when I put that white paper, especially when this fabric is right by itself, it doesn't have that blue gray to compare it to. It might be a little harder to tell what the undertone is. When this is by itself, look at how just normal gray that looks. But I'm going to put this white paper next to it, and now you can start to see the undertone or the color behind the color. So once you figured out the color behind that color, this is where you can lean into that. So since this is a like a pink or purple undertone, I'm going to lean into the pinks and the purples, or I'm going to make sure that I pick out fabrics that look really good with pink and purple. If I have a gray and I'm just picking colors that go with it, I mean, everything goes with gray, right? But you have to be careful of that undertone. And so you can see that these colors really complement that undertone, but maybe something like this navy or a lighter blue fights against it a little bit. So lean into the color behind the color. You would see the same thing on this other side. And that is, whoop, there we go. We've got this blue, or sorry, this gray that's much more in the blue family. The purple's not really its friend, but it does look really nice next to some of these blues. And so if you're finding that your colors are fighting against each other, or the neighbors that you put with it are making it look really muddy and not pleasant, you don't have to throw the whole thing out. Just try changing the friends that it hangs out with. If you've ever heard the saying, you are who you are friends with, nothing could be truer with fabric. Is the fabric is who its friends are, and you want to find good friends for your fabric. Now with that, um, that brings us to a little extra bonus tip. I think I said just 4. We were just gonna talk about 4 tips, but there's one that I really like, and I'm gonna move these guys out of the way and do another demonstration. And this one has to do with when you are building a quilt, when you're building a quilt, especially from a pattern. Take a look at the pattern. And what you want to do is when you're looking at these fabrics, you want to look at them representative of how you'll see them in the quilt. And I show you this example. I can flip it over here. We'll go overhead so you can see it a little bit better. But when you're looking at a pattern, what you want to look for is, are any of the fabrics represented more than the others? So you can see in this quilt, there's a little fold in it, but for the most part, everything is roughly the same amount until you get to this blue stripe. So when I'm picking out fabrics for a quilt and I'm spreading them out when I'm looking at them, I want to do my best to make them representative of what I'll see in a quilt. So if I were laying out fabrics for this, the fabric that I wanted to put in this spot with blue, I would make that a bigger piece of the pie. And I'll show you what I mean here. I'm just going to grab some of my fat quarters and we'll go like this. So we'll just keep that over here for reference. But let's say I wanted this to be the light blue and I wanted this to be the darker blue and I wanted this to be the green. This is just kind of, or I'm sorry, the turquoise blue there. I want this to be representative of how I'm going to see it. So I'm going to show a bigger piece of that than I would normally. And then I would just kind of keep on going with my fabric. So a lot of people will lay out their fat quarters just kind of even like this and say, yep, That looks good. But what you're missing is how much more of that turquoise you'll see. And so this is just kind of a quick and dirty way to make sure that you like the fabrics together in that quantity. Um, and so it doesn't have to be precise or exact. You're just eyeballing and you're saying, "Yep, there's more of that turquoise than there is of any of the other colors, so I'm going to show it as a little bit bigger piece." And then that will give you a gut feel for, do I really like that much neon green, or that safety yellow color with these other colors? And then you have the opportunity to pivot if you need to. So that those are just like I say, just the tip of the iceberg of the things that you'll learn in our Color for Quilters class. The sign up is starting now. And for all of our Gotham Live viewers, you are going to get a discount of $20 off your registration. You'll just want to use the coupon code LIVE20, LIVE 20 at checkout, and you'll get $20 off of that. Now, you might also be wondering about this quilt behind me. This one is called Delusional, and I just have it up behind me. It doesn't really have much to do with color, although if I step away, I think what you'll see is some of the things that we are talking about, some of the things where color plays a role. So if you squint at this, because there's so much contrast, I can almost guarantee, if you want to give it a try, I can almost guarantee that you are going to see lots of differences between those different colors so that you know at a glance that this has enough contrast, enough value difference. But we've got the kit and the pattern. The pattern is a free download. So if you're interested in making this one, it's a lot of fun. It's made with strip piecing. So it goes together super quick. And it's one of those quilts that looks way more tricky than it is. I love those quilts because it always wows people. And if you need just a little bit more color inspiration, we've got our June Thread Talk speaker. This is Carolina Onito. She is going to tell us all about befriending color and give us even more tips and tricks that we can use. This is going to be a fantastic Thread Talk for you to sign up for. It's an hour long virtual. You join from the privacy of your own home. And this one is so we have Thread Talks the first Wednesday of every month. So we cannot wait to have Carolina as a Thread Talk speaker. I know she's just going to give you so many tips and tricks that you can use right away for color. So with that, that is our show for today. I appreciate you, watching the first round, and I hope you found some extra tips and tricks in the second round. We will see you same bat time, same bat channel. That is on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. Eastern for our live shows, and we'll see you then, if not before. And I really hope before.